Morning, everyone. We'd like to welcome everyone to Mishna in the morning, and hope you had a good weekend and a good Shavuos. Enjoyed the cheesecake, and now we are back. Very exciting, beginning a new tractate, which is called Ethics of the Fathers, Pirkei Avos. So we are going to first, as always, we will dedicate our learning. This morning's learning is dedicated in memory of David ben Shimon Balcom, Esther bas Yitzchak, Fagor bas Abraham, Zipporah bas Aaron, as well as those that we are saying because they have lost someone during the year. Leah bas Bible, Tivia bas Mordechai, Avram ben David Slavin, Shlomo ben Yisrael Morris, Eliezer ben Shmuel Teret, Eliezer Shalom ben Avram Shmuel Beres, Zipporah Fagala bas Reuven Baruch, Shalom ben Ali Ali, and Bena bas Bible. We wish all their families a long life and only simchas. So today we begin, as we've already mentioned, Ethics of the Fathers. Ethics of the Fathers is the we're going to discuss exactly what it is and a bit about its history, because whereas we have learnt till now some of the law jurisprudence relating to the Sanhedrin and other matters, we come onto a completely different genre of study now. Ethical and moral principles, character building. That's what Pirkei Avos, Ethics of the Fathers, is known for. Pirkei Avos literally means ethics of the fathers. And I'm going to give you a bit of background this morning so that we can have an appreciation of what it is and what it is not. And that will stand us in good stead as we are able to journey through the various principles which are contained in this beautiful book, that we have a tradition to read it on a Shabbat afternoon in the summer months. And it is a book, in fact, that is studied throughout the year by many, many students because it is about character building. So let's just take a step back and then we'll understand what's going on. So the Mishnah is the recordings of the teachings of our rabbis over 5 centuries, which comes before the destruction of the temple, the second temple, and goes all the way through around 100 years after the destruction of the second temple. And the first part of the Mishnah, which is why I'm going to discuss a bit about the background and history, is it starts off in a quite unusual fashion, right? Moshe kibel Torah miSinai and Masorah Yeshua. So Moses, we know on Shavuot, that's what we're celebrating. Moshe received the Torah on Mount Sinai and he passed it to Joshua. Then the Mishnah goes on to say, what did Joshua do with it? But Yeshua leZakenim, Yeshua was able to pass it to the Zakenim, to the elders. Zaken is an elder. The Zakenim leNeviim. The Zakenim were able to pass it to the prophets. And Neviim Mosra Yeshua la'anshe Knesset Hagdola. And the prophets were able to pass it on to the men of the great assembly. Okay? And then it comes on to the first principle. But this is baffling. You know, these 3 lines is exceptionally uncharacteristic. We don't find it in any other Mishnah. So why is it that we need a history overview, if you can call it that? In the truth being told is that the details are so scant, you can't even call it a history overview. So what exactly are we being told? That Moshe received the Torah at Sinai, he passed it on to Joshua, Joshua passed it to the elders, etc., etc. Let's try and understand. And the idea is that this question, in fact, is discussed by one of the great commentators, by the Bartanura, who asks a slightly different question, who asks why it is that if we are going to be given an introduction to the study of Mishnah and its origins and its pedigree, why here? This is the 4th tractate, right? The 4th book, right? We're now in discussing about Pirkei Avos, Ethics of the Fathers, but we had all the other tractates that came before it. Why wasn't the pedigree of the Mishnah discussed there in the history? And he explains that the purpose of this introduction is not to give us a historical overview of the transmission of the Torah from one generation to the next. If that was the case, then the Ethics of the Fathers would be doing a pretty poor job, because it only discusses very few details. It's very skeletal in its overview. But the point is that we are now moving from Jewish law, we are now moving all of a sudden to discuss about Jewish principles of character building, of ethical teachings, not legal principles. And therefore, in order that we should take it seriously, and we should see it as authentic, and we should see it as verifiable, therefore we need to understand that even this section of the Torah, its origins are from Sinai. In other words, it has a Sinaitic tradition. It has a pedigree which is exactly the same as don't steal, don't kill, right? All the principles in the Torah about torts and damages and not, all the other laws that we are familiar with, Lashon Hara and everything else. So those principles are just as sacrosanct, right? The ethics of the fathers principles as those which we have already discussed, as the Ten Commandments and everything else. And a person may come along and may say, well, I wouldn't believe that. I wouldn't think that. You come along and you hear about being, greeting everyone, right, with a smile on your face, right, judging everyone favorably. That's, laudable. It's wonderful principles, but it's a bit pie in the sky. It's a bit theoretical, right? It's not finite. It's not specific. It's not task specific. And therefore, a person may come along and say, yeah, I get it. It's nice principles. I'll take it on board and I'll take it with a pinch of salt and I'll apply it when and if I decide. Comes along this Mishnah and says, no, that's not the way it works. The same way there's we accepted at Sinai all the rest of the Torah, so that character building ethical teachings are just as much a part of our Torah law. They are law, and therefore we are bound by it. And therefore these are not nice adages by our sages, take it or leave it, but these are things that we have to integrate. These are things that we have to live by, right? And that is the principle, the first principle which I want everyone to take away today. That when we speak in the course of the next few weeks and we hear about some of these statements of our sages, they weren't throwing out nice epithets, nice statements for us to feel good about ourselves between us and our fellow Jew, the way we're meant to treat people. That's not what it's about. It's about teaching us principles that they lived by, and each statement was something which was considered law, and therefore we are bound by it. Okay, that's the first point. Okay, so so let's just give an overview of the period, of the historical periods. So we mentioned that Moshe received the Torah on Sinai. Now, contrary to popular belief, Moshe did not come down, right, with, thousands of books. He didn't come down with he came down with tablets, not with a tablet. He didn't come down, with a cartload of books after him with every word written down. No, that's not the way it worked. What happened was Moshe came down with the tablets of stone, right? And in addition to that, he had been taught and had absorbed the principles of the whole Torah. And over the course of the history, therefore, these principles of the next 40 years, in fact, these principles were transmitted, and Moshe taught them to Joshua, who was able to teach it to the rest of the Jewish people. And eventually, Joshua and the elders enter into Israel. They conquer the land of Israel. That was their mission. They established the Jewish people in the land of Israel, which Moshe was not allowed to enter into. And then the next stage was during the time that we first established ourselves in the land of Israel, was the period of the prophets, right? Prophets such as Samuel, right? And Deborah, right? Spiritual leaders in Israel, which the prophets period was actually from the establishment, from the entry into the land of Israel, all the way through 1,000 years of Jewish history until the period of the Mishna, right? It was a period where there were no longer open miracles in our history, right? There was no splitting of the sea or the 10 plagues, but yet God still was communicating directly to the prophets, right? So therefore there was still open communication for a select few, but they were able to receive the messages from on high, which they were then able to pass on to the Jewish people. So that was a second stage in our history. Okay, the third stage, which our Mishnah discusses, is the Second Temple era, which is the men of the Great Assembly, the Anshe Knesset Hagdola. This was essentially a judicial body of 120 of Israel's greatest scholars, who were headed up by what's called a Nasi. Nasi literally means to raise, to elevate, but it was he was considered a prince in Israel, treated like royalty, right? Rabbi Yehuda Hanossi is one of the most famous ones, and there was also an Av Beis Din, a head of the ecclesiastical court, and basically these two were the supreme authorities, and these two were the transmitters of our tradition over the course of the millennia, and therefore throughout the Tractate of Ethics of the Fathers, we are going to be introduced to various leadership pairs, and we are going to understand about who they were and what they stood for, okay, in each of the generations of this council. Okay, so let's now have a look. Having understood a bit about the background, we have like 3 minutes to try and actually learn the first principles that they stated. Hevu masunim badin. So that means that we are meant to be patient, slow to judge people, right? That doesn't just mean about a court of law, but that's referring to all our behavior. We're meant to be deliberate in judgment and slow and careful and considerate, right? And also in terms of judging other people, right? So often we make assumptions, we jump to conclusions, right? We don't think, and often in our own lives, when we think about Judaism, we are not slow, but we are very quick. This is what I do. This is what I'm not prepared to do. I don't accept that. We're quick to judge people. We're quick to judge principles. We're quick to judge Judaism. And therefore, we are being told to slow down, to take a step back, to try to see if we are being objective about people and about things. And if we are able to be a bit more objective, we will be able to see the matter in the round. We'll be able to have a correct perspective of life, and hopefully be able to absorb more as we are more aware of what's going on around us. So let's go on. That's the first principle that is stated. Okay. The next one is that we should have v'himidu talmidim harbe. You should raise many students, right? There's a danger, right, that we may decide, the only people that I want, and students don't just mean our children are our students, of course, because they learn from us, they're sponges, but everyone who's around us who speaks to us or asks for our opinion, they are in a sense at that moment students. They are asking for our opinion. We are sharing with them our wisdom. So therefore, we could come along with an approach and saying, listen, I only want to mix, and I only want to have students or people that I advise that I think are really on my level, that are really, I'm proud to be associated with them. That's not what the Mishna says. The Mishna says that we should establish many students, and that is beneficial to them and to us. It's beneficial to them in that they are able to glean from our knowledge. It's beneficial to us in that there are different perspectives. And the more that we bring in different students, the more that we gain from their different perspectives. The different personalities bring out different perspectives of wisdom. And in addition to that, they gain so much more, and they are able to share with the world at large a different perspective to what we are teaching. Okay. The third principle, and there's much more to say about it, is va'asusiag l'Torah, that you're meant to make a fence around the Torah. So this is perhaps one of the most popularly misconceived ideas. The rabbis are always coming up with more laws. They're making stringencies. Why do we need it? So I'm going to give you a very, very quick analogy for this, but there is much, much more to say. Maybe we'll pick it up next time. And that is that if we imagine that you've got a cliff top, if you go to Bournemouth and the like, right, you'll see that there are railings all around the areas where people walk along the promenade. Why do they have railings? You could just put up a sign. And the answer is because people may think that they know better than everyone else, and therefore they may walk very close to the edge to see the beautiful view and the vista, and then they may, God forbid, have an accident and someone could accidentally fall off. We only have to look in the news to see that 3 young men that jumped off a cliff top, right? They thought that they knew better, and it was an absolute disaster for them. We pray that they recover. So the point is that the Torah, if you have something that is precious as life itself, it is important that we safeguard, we protect people. And to protect people, that means we have to put up belts and braces. We have to put up measures, fences around the areas which are dangerous. So therefore, if it is that the laws of Shabbat or the law or other laws, for example, that are sacrosanct, and there's a real danger that people may become lax or certain areas may be trampled all over, therefore there's an important principle of protecting it, that we don't come to dilute it or lose it as a result of us just using our own judgment to decide where the boundaries are. So therefore that is a principle that we have to enshrine the principles of our Torah. Okay, so we're going to stop there. There is so much wisdom. I'm using this book, which, as you can see, is got this is the Ethics of the Fathers, is there, right? And look, these are just 3 commentators all the way around the page, right, which are sharing their insights into it. And in fact, there are thousands and thousands when it comes to Ethics of the Fathers, and we will try to do one Mishnah every day and to motor our way through so that we are understanding some of the principles. But this is a very important one about being be slow to judge people, right? There is nothing wrong in silence. You know, if you sit outside today in your garden, you can't hear anything. You just hear the birds that are tweeting, that are talking one to another. And sometimes silence is good. You don't always have to make a statement. You don't always have to give an answer, give a decision, be it to your kids, be it to friends. You can sit on it and say, you know what, that's a really good question. I want to think about it. Or I don't know the answer to it. And there's nothing wrong in that. And people will respect you more for being more careful and considerate about before we shoot from the hip and give an opinion. So the second principle we said is establish many students. Let many people share your wisdom with many people. Don't think that you only want to have a limited number of people that you advise. People may value your opinion. It could be anyone you know. So therefore, we shouldn't be afraid as we get older and wiser and we've experienced more of life to be prepared to share our wisdom with others. And the third thing is to make a fence. Make a fence around the areas which are danger in life, and to accept that the Torah, which has the infinite wisdom, is necessary sometimes to put some parameters around it, right? There has to be boundaries in our lives. So often we are just allowing people to do whatever they want. There have to be boundaries. If we have boundaries, then we can protect ourselves and our families, and we'll stop there. Okay, so we're now going to make a Refuah Shlema prayer, and we will have a pause, as has been suggested, so that people can insert the names of those that require a Refuah Shlema. Misha Berach Avosenu Abraham Yisrael Yaakov Moshe Aaron David Shlomo Yivarech Rapes Achelim. Bavu Shanu Mispalim Bavuram Biskas HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yimalei Rachim Aleichem Lachim Alefosam Yishlach Lehem Refuah Shlema Neshamaim Lechol Avim Basoch Shach Chol Yisrael Refuah Nefesh U'Zekuf Hashtav Aglas Malkarev and Amar Amen. Psalm 23, in which we know that King David found himself on the run from Saul. His life was on the line, and yet at this desperate time in his life, he was able to stay strong in his faith, to affirm his faith. And that is the test that all of us find in our lives when our plans are scuppered and we find that all of a sudden there's a spanner thrown in the works and we're asking ourselves, God, what am I meant to do? It's hard. We're in lockdown. The kids are driving me mad, or I'm lonely. I need to get out. And we're struggling with all these things and we're feeling frustrated. This is the psalm that we should say and we should think of to affirm our faith and to say we're going to stay strong. We're going to come through this, and I'm not alone. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He causes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the path of righteousness for his name's sake. Even when I walk in the valley of darkness, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You set a table before me in the presence of my adversaries. You anointed my head with oil, my cup overflows. May only goodness and kindness pursue me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord for the length of days. We conclude with a memorial prayer for all those that the Yortzeit falls today, or for those that have passed away during coronavirus, or just before coronavirus, and they cannot say Kaddish, the family members, and therefore we are saying memorial prayers and learning Mishnah in their stead. Adon Elamim Zachoes Nishmais. Leva Bas Bible, Tivia Bas Mordechai, Avram Ben David Slavin, Shlomo ben Yisrael Morris, Eliezer ben Shmultet, Eliezer Shalom ben Avram Shmuel Beres, Tzipora Fegel bas Reuven, Baruch Shalom ben Eliali, Ben Abbas Faivo, David ben Shimon Balkum, Esther bas Yitzchok, Fegel bas Avram, Tzipora bas Aaron, Shalchu Li'olamam, Began Eden Tehimenu Chasam, Lachin Balarachamim, Yasti Rein Besesakana Pavli Olamim, Vitzopus Rochaim Nishmasam Adonai Nachlasam, Vianuchu Amishkavam, Amishkvasam, Veshalom Venamar Amen. Apologies, friends. I know it was slightly longer than usual. I hope you found it long and not long-winded, but these are the essential principles for us to live by our daily lives. And I am sure that we are all going to feel our lives so enriched as we go through and we journey through time, and we are able to understand and internalize and integrate these principles into the lives of ourselves and our families. Have a great day. Keep safe, keep well, look after yourselves, and please God, we'll see you tomorrow. Take care. All the best.